Hi friends, welcome back to the day 2 in the Fun and Learn JavaScript. So today we'll talk about how exactly the JavaScript executed, right? And we'll understand the different phases of JavaScript execution, and we'll learn the way that how we can predict the output of the JavaScript code. And also we'll see how exactly the let, where, and const are different from each other by taking the debugging steps into our consideration, right? So without wasting our time, let's go and just see the code into a VS Code. So you can see that we are in the VS Code now, and this is our day 2. So simply create a folder named day 2, right? So we simply go on day 2. The day 2 friends, I talked about that today I will understand how exactly the code is executed, right? So I will go and execution process, right? Or dot, I simply make a text file, right? I don't want to see anything else. I just want to read and understand the code execution, right? So friends, when we talk about JavaScript, so we say that there are two phases, right? Phase 1 plus phase 2 is exactly the way the JavaScript code get executed. Now, when you write this thing, phase 1, phase 2, you won't find this kind of things over the internet. This is the way that I have learned about, and I deal the JavaScript accordingly, right? So when we talk about phase 1 trend, the phase 1 says to me that just do one thing and just maintain the things, right? Memory management. So I simply say declarations, right? So declarations of variables and functions, right? So just declare everything that you require for the memory management. So whatever you want in the phase 1, it's going to do this much only, right? The phase 2 says that just do accept whatever is there, right? So I simply do an execution in the step phase 2. Make sure friends you understand this phase 1, phase 2, because this is very important for me to teach you, because if I need to understand the basic fundamental how code is getting executed, so please remember this one, phase 1 and phase 2 are very important part in that case, right? So how come I can understand this thing? Let's take the simplest example about it. So I write a piece of code. I say let a equals to 10, right? So this piece of code says that I'm going to print value of a as well. So I write console.log of a, right? So when I print a variable a value, friends, you can see that it's not a big deal. It's going to print 10 for sure, right? But if I just change the code in this way to this step number 2, right? Now what do you expect? So as per the code, right, if I try to understand the code, you can see now the code is going to get me an error on the variable a, because the line number 11 is actually printing the variable a, right? And actually the variable is getting initialized here, right? So this is going to get an error. But if I just take it where, right? So this is a bit different way, right? The where keyword does something different, right, when we write like this way. So let's try to understand this thing as well, right? So let's see how exactly the phase 1 will work for the first case, right? So we go with this phase 1, right? So what for phase 1 friend says? So phase 1 say that all right, just declare the variables and just declare the functions. As of now friends, I don't have anything just like function creation. We have simple variable with the name a, right? So in the phase 1, friends, I simply say variable a declare, right? And the variable a actually has a value, right? And everything, whenever you declare anything in JavaScript, make sure to understand this thing very clearly. Whenever you declare any variable in JavaScript, the variable will get a default value as undefined, right? So what I expect from this variable, that is undefined. Remember this very clearly, right? So variable a, you are undefined, right? And that is phase 1, step number 1 is completed from here, right? But friends, if I talk about the variable a, you can see variable a is also getting a value assigned to it, right? The assignment of the value 10 to variable a is also written in the same line. But remember this thing, phase, right now we are in phase 1. The phase 1 says never do anything except declaration, right? So for me, the phase 1 is just going to declare this variable let a, right? Now what's the next line? The next line says that I need to print the variable a value. And remember friends, when we call any function, the function call always comes under the execution part. So do make sure that you understand this thing very clearly. This console.log is an execution statement that has not to be happened in the phase 1, right? So what exactly we have in the phase 1 friends? We have simple variable a that has a defined value, undefined, that is default, right? That's all about the phase 1 friends. Now what exactly the phase 2 will do? So phase 2 says accept whatever is there, just do the things. Now I don't need to declare anything friends, just understand this thing very clearly. I don't need to declare anything, I just have to do execute. So phase 1 says in the line number 6 itself, it says okay, now it's for me to get variable a value 10, right? So I will try to initialize the variable a with value 10. So you can see this line getting executed. So variable 10 undefined, it will go to now 10. The value for variable shifted from undefined to 10, right? And what the next time friend it does is simply says now it's time for me to print, right, the value of a. So friends, in this case I will print actually the value of a. From here I can see the variable a is actually having a current value as 10, so I get 10 into my output. I hope so friend, it makes sense to both of you, right? So both the statements are working different. So this statement is executing this way. Now let's try to understand the same thing by taking a debugging steps, right? So let's try to do a debugging with simple code of this particular thing. So in the day two friends, I'm going to create one thing. So I will go with demo1.js file. I paste the code here friends. Remember this thing, I pasting the code here. And friends, I put a debugger here. Right, why I'm taking this one line extra friends, the reason being that because if I don't put another extra line, you won't see the things workingly that I need to show you, right? So just understand this thing. I'm trying to execute the code here. I say node the day 2, right, the day 2, and we have a demo and execute. Now friends, I can see the values correcting 10. That's what I need, right? Let's try to debug this code. Now friends, when debugging this code, you will see that actually the variable. So I was talking about when we debugging the code, actually the variable is going to get me the value about it, right? So we simply do Control Shift D, right? So on this correct line, we do Control Shift D for this thing to debug, right? So friends, when you click on this debug, you will see that this is just going to take some time for this to show up the things, and you will see that variable this is coming up here, right? And perfectly fine. I'm happy with the stuff and understand this thing. You can see the variable a is actually holding the value 10, but right now if I go there, right, you can see the local has a scope here and the variable a is undefined. I'm also having my watch on the variable that is right now undefined, you can see very clearly. So when I move to the next step, you can see that variable gets value updated, right? So value is getting updated here in the watch. You can see the value is getting 10 here, and that's the same thing here, right? So when I try to print the variable value, you will see the variable value get printed as 10, right? And there's nothing to do extra. All right, let me put a debugger on the line number 1 itself. Friends, remember that I'm putting a debugger on the line number 1 itself, not on 2 as of now. So previously debugger was on line number 2, right? Now let's go to line number 1 and understand what exactly is going to happen. Again, I do a debug, right? So friends, when I do a debug on line number 1, you can see there's nothing getting executed as of now, right? There's no code getting executed, but still if I look into the code, you will see that your variable is actually there, right? You can see the variable is actually there, right? By default, the line number 1 getting executed, it was there in the phase 1, right? It was there, and that has a value undefined. Okay, remember this thing friend, that has a value undefined for sure, right? That's what I mean to talk about. And later when I go back, you can see the value gets updated here. That's what I want to see, and it getting printed 10 as of now. All right, and friends, I want to show you one thing very clearly. You can see the variable is coming under one scope, that is local. Here you can see very clear it's local, right? Very clear local word. There is one more scope friends, I can see global, and the global contains so many things that even I don't need to know understand this currently. But I can see that variable a was declaring under the local scope, right? That's what I can say about the variable as of now. Now coming back with my code, if I do update my code with the let keyword to with the where, right? Do I have variable coming up in the local scope? Let's try to see. All right. I'm writing this code. I'm doing a debug once again from the line number 1 itself. You can see, right? So when I do a debug, you will see now variable has no local scope, right? So as of now, I can see that it is again coming to the local scope. How come this is in the local scope? So friend, you say that Kuldeep, that I learned about the variables come under this local scope. No, that comes under the global scope, right? So if I try to look here, it's not coming up here, right? As of now, the variable is coming under here only. Let's try to debug again. You will see the variable comes here only, right? The value is getting updated here, and let's move back, and I'm good to go. So is it really working, or there's something wrong with my data? I try to see the friends. I hope so. It makes sense. Let's just try once again and see the variable a is here, right? Remember this thing, variable a is here. Do a debug. I can see the variable is coming under the local scope only. What is wrong with my content? Is it something really correct or not, right? So what do you think, friends? Is it coming under local scope, or that should come under the global scope? That's what I'm trying to adapt, right, as of now. So friends, that's the thing, right? I can show you an example here very clearly. Now you can see the things, right? And it's coming up like this only. So now, friends, let's try to see how exactly the where are different from the let keyword, right? So I simply write this thing, right? And I have if condition on the top of it. I write true here, right? I hope so you remember this thing when we write true. Now it is a block, right? Let's try to see what happens with my variable when we try to write inside the block, right? Let's try to execute the code, and we have some small mistake. Just a minute. I will start the execution of the code from the line number one itself, right? So that's what I need to understand, and let's debug. Now, friends, I do debug the code. You can see that it's coming up into the picture. You can see the variable is still in the same scope, right? You will find the variable in the same local scope. You can see the local scope variable a has a value undefined as of now. In the watch also we can see. I update the variable. You can see the variable is equally 10, and it's trying to print now. It prints the value 10 as well, right? So it gets printed. You can see the values getting printed here. Okay, and that's all, right? You can see the variable is still under the local scope. Now friends, if I understand this thing, let and where are exactly same under the same scenario, right? So now if I use the let keyword here, now see the difference. Make sure that you understand the difference very clearly. Now when I see this difference, friend, you will see that now when you try to debug again, you will see another scope coming into the picture, right? That scope is now block scope. I hope you can see very clearly in the left hand side. There is now nothing like local here on the top. It is just a block. The local is below, and the local, friends, you can see there's no variable declared with the name a. You can see the block scope, friends. I have variable name a undefined, right? And that variable is under the block of if condition, right? I hope it makes sense to understand you. Now, friends, when it make sure that right now I'm putting my watch on the variable a here, right? You can go. You can see the value is getting updated for this variable, right? The variable value is 10 now here, right? And you can see in the watch as well. When I go next, friends, you know that value is getting printed, right? When I try to print the value, guys, you will see the value is getting printed as 10. That's obvious, right? That's totally obvious for me to understand. Now, friend, just try to understand where is your block scope. There's nothing of block scope. You can see there's uncaught reference error because the variable is now destroyed, right? I hope so it makes sense. For my var keyword, the variable was still there till the last, right? It was still alive. Now coming to the variable that is using the let keyword is not there, right? I hope it makes sense to understand, right, by debugging. Coming to take the same example, I write a const keyword. Well, if you try to see the const keyword variable here, right, there's no big change when I use a let or when I use a const. Both are exactly same. You will get another block scope variable declared with the variable name a, and that has value undefined default. I hope you can see on the left hand side, right? In this particular case, what we understood that variables b is undefined and that has a block scope. When I complete the block, the variable will be destroyed. The block is destroyed. You can see now again I'm back with the local scope. I hope you understood the example very clearly. I end my video here and we'll see the next thing in the next video that will understand more about the JavaScript codes in the